Good evening and welcome back to another episode of What's So Funny, the show that probes the minds, the brains, the psyches of the people who make the funny. Tonight, the redoubtable Paul F. Tompkins joins us by phone from high atop the hills of his Hollywood home. I have no idea if he lives in Hollywood, but I couldn't resist the H's. He does live somewhere in greater Los Angeles, I know, so why not Hollywood, really? We'll talk to Paul F. about his upcoming and now recently passed trip to Vancouver and find out what makes this brilliant comedic watch of a mind tick. So hang on to your bow ties and mustaches. Here we go. Let's now pretend to call Paul F. Tompkins like this is just happening, even though he'll be talking about a show that happened a couple weeks ago. So put that out of your mind, especially if you're listening on podcast, because nothing is up to date in podcast world. And we are a podcast too, by the way. P.S. You can Google What's So Funny, find our blog. You can search for it on iTunes. And of course, listen to it right here on Co-op Radio. So I'm going to pick up the phone now, the pretend phone, and just see if Paul's home.
Hello?
Hello, Paul F. Tompkins.
Yes, hello.
This is Guy McPherson in Vancouver.
Hey, Guy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for waiting. Sorry I couldn't talk right away.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Are you looking forward to continuing your love affair with Vancouver audiences?
Just that one time.
I was there.
Yucks.
I was there, but it was a beautiful thing, though.
It was fun. It was actually fun.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, it really was. It was so, it was ridiculous. So crazy.
So you came out with an attitude like you're just going to improvise.
Was the last person on that show. Yeah. I had seen what had happened with that crowd before I got up there. So yeah, I kind of knew that these people were too drunk to be paying attention to any shows. So yeah, I said, well, I'm certainly not going to try to do material for these folks. And then I just riffed it. It was I had a ball.
And at that time, I know you're doing that now, these long introductory riffs, and that was a set that was a riff.
Yeah.
Had you been doing it at that point?
Yes, I believe so. When was this? A couple years ago now?
Yeah, I think so.
I think I was just starting to do that a little bit. I don't think it was a staple of my sets. I also don't know at that time if I was doing that much stand-up around, across the country and everything. But certainly, I would riff a lot whenever I'd get up on stage. But I think I'd done that once before at the San Francisco Sketch Fest, where I did a set that was just entirely riffed. Short set,
Yeah.
Not like a full headlining set of just off the top of my head. But yeah, it was not. I don't think it was yet the full on staple of my sets that it is now.
Because you clearly have the ability, and you must have known that, but you just thought that that's what you don't do, or why hadn't you?
I think that it depends on the situation, and I like the riffing for me is fun, but I feel like the audience is expecting material, and they're a paying crowd, and they're paying for material, and I don't think I had felt as strong about the riffing as its own reward for the audience, as an acceptable set until recently. I would hear what I would love is to get to the point where I can do a headlining set that is all riffing. I've done it a few times now with shorter sets at festivals and things like that. It's usually after a long show, with multiple comedians. It just seems like, for me, the last person going out there, it's like I'm not going to top the whole show. I'm not going to. If people have been sitting there for about 2 hours of comedy, it just seems like the best thing for me to go out and give them something spontaneous in that way. As a kind of summation of the night. Rather than anything by rote or just really trying to I'm going to destroy everything that's gone before me. You're going to forget that the rest of the show even happened. To kind of go out with a memorable, with something memorable like that. to me is more interesting. I think for me, and I think for the audience, it just feels right to me.
Yeah, sometimes I think they get the order wrong in clubs, because the last comic comes on, the headliner, when you should be paying the most attention, and people are settling up their bills, and it's been a long night, as you say, a couple hours. Mm-hmm. Put on the newcomers at the end. Start out with your headliner.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Theory.
Yeah. So really, that show in Vancouver may have spurred you on to this riffing.
Maybe.
Something good came out of it.
One first. I can't remember the order, but certainly there have been situations like that. That I just kind of know it when it happens. Like, this requires some improvising. This just requires going out there and being in the moment and seeing what happens. It's a vibe from the audience. Yeah,
I know you've done sketch and stand up. Have you done improv as well?
Not really, no. And that is a goal of mine. That's something that I would eventually like to become proficient at. Is improvising in scenes with other people. I live here in Los Angeles, where there's a UCB theater, and I love the show ASCAT that they do, which is and I've been the monologist for that, which is just me as myself, a stream of consciousness, telling stories in order to provide fodder for the scenes that the improvisers are going to do. But I would love to actually play in the scenes someday. It's an intimidating thing, because those people are so good that I would love to get to the point where I could at least hold my own with them. And do scenes, because I as much as I love stand-up, I like working with other people too, and it's fun to do sketches, it's fun to do scenes. So yeah, that's a kind of goal of mine.
Yeah, it's a different muscle, obviously, for improv. Is it as well for sketch than stand-up?
Well, sketch is very written, and there's a lot of fun to be had in that, in creating that little 5-minute world, and it's enjoyable. I hate the process of writing. I like having written, and I like
Me too.
Then performing sketches that I write, but I don't like the actual writing of it. So it's a different discipline entirely, and even then from writing stand-up, because stand-up I'm just writing for one guy to say, and I don't even have to write it down really. I can just write bullet points and know what I'm going to do. But with sketch, if you're doing a sketch with another person, you have to write the back and forth, and you have to write the other person's lines, and then there's trying to. I do sketches as part of a monthly variety show that I do here in Los Angeles, and part of the sketch writing process for me is knowing that my guest that's going to be doing the sketch with me is coming in kind of on the fly. They're not necessarily going to have a lot of time to devote to memorizing a sketch, so I try to make it as logical as possible. That's just basic writing anyway, but that the lines naturally lead into each other, so that nobody's ever going to get too lost on stage. If they haven't had a chance to get completely off book, it's like, this question demands this answer, that kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, the discipline of improv with other people is one that I have not studied, and I think I would need to study it to a certain degree. I think I'd be good at it. I think I have an aptitude for it, but I certainly don't have the hours of performance in that field to be proficient at this point.
Sure, and it would be harder as a known entity to go up there and flail about, I guess.
Oh, it'd be horrible. And it's something that makes me nervous, but it's like something that I would definitely like to study at some point.
I've always loved your elevated diction and dress, and I think it fits perfectly with a guy with a middle initial. So which came first? I mean, I know you've always had a middle name, but when you started out, would we recognize you as you are today?
Yeah, I think so. I would say absolutely. I think that I always wore a suit and tie on stage, and the manner in which I speak has always been amusing to me. So, I mean, I think subject matter would definitely be different, and my delivery might be slightly different because I was a product of the late 80s, comedy boom, and there was a certain way of doing comedy in the clubs at that time that I think I had a little bit of that delivery, and it took me. It takes you a while to find your own. For most of us, it takes you a while to find your own voice and figure out who you are on stage.
Sure.
I think of when I think of back then, I think that I was probably very clubby, and I wasn't as. I don't think I was as distinctive as I thought that I was back then, or that I would have liked to have been.
Mm-hmm. And was there another Paul Tompkins? Is that why we have the middle initial?
Oh no, I've used the middle initial since before I got into show business.
Oh, okay. Now you also did like a short film as a kid, right? So you were always geared towards performing and showbiz.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you?
When I did that thing, I was probably 12, I think.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. I mean, I loved performing in any chance that I got. I did school plays and stuff like that, I just have always loved it.
And that's when you took the middle initial? Like in school, you were Paul F. Tompkins?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. You should be an author, too. And I think it's a work of a master craftsman comic when he can attack and ridicule something that's dear to the listener and not turn off the listener, as you so ably did with your take on jazz on your first album, which is a passion of mine and not yours, and yet hilarious. And I've passed it on to many a jazz musician and fan, and they all love it.
Well, I have gotten mostly positive feedback for stuff like that. Every once in a while I get somebody, like I had a guy write me on MySpace, this is a while ago now, to try to explain to me how jazz works and why those guys laugh on stage. And it's like, I'm not trying to debate anybody with my comedy. It's all just, it's kidding around.
Yeah.
Kidding around. Just today I had a guy from that same CD, that Potato Famine bit. I guess my first Comedy Central special just re-aired recently, and this guy went on my fan page to explain to me the Irish Potato Famine, and tell me how unfunny I was. And what I love about that is, and this has happened over the years, is somebody is explaining to me a thing that somebody is thinking that I don't understand something, and they're very condescendingly explaining it to me when they completely are not understanding something that I am kidding around. Of course, I know that the potato famine was not caused by the fact that people were just holding out for potatoes. They refused to eat anything else. Of course, I know that. Like that. What I love is that this person is so stupid they think I'm stupid.
Well, this just came up yesterday, funnily enough, because I get my information from you. So I believed that the potato famine was that they had no potatoes. And my wife just told me yesterday that, no, it means that's all they could eat was potatoes.
Yeah, they were forced to
I think they've
grow,
named it wrong.
One crop to the exclusion of all others. And it doesn't work out so well.
No. Okay, point taken. Now, you quit stand-up for a while, did you?
No, I wouldn't say that I quit. I think when I first moved to L.A., I didn't have as many opportunities to do stand-up because I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to start all over again doing open mics at the Improv because I didn't know anybody, So I did a lot less stand-up. I always, did it at least a little bit. And I did a few road gigs when I first came out to LA, but then I realized, well, I didn't move to LA so I could be out of town all the time. So I took a day job and stayed in town, and that's when I got into sketch and stuff, and then gradually got into stand up via the alternative, coffee shop circuit that was happening around here.
What was the day job?
I had a few. I think the first one when I moved out here was I did a telemarketing job, and that just was brutal, and I eventually just quit without telling anybody. One day I just went in and got my paycheck and I left. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was really horrible.
I listen to you. Basically, I listen to a lot of podcasts these days, and my rule of thumb is when you're a guest, I listen to it because you can't.
That's a good rule, I think.
You can't listen to them all. Well, I can't anyway. There's just too many.
You also shouldn't listen to them all. That's crazy.
Yeah, or even a handful is cumbersome. But you are the ultimate guest on these podcasts. Now, if you were being paid for being a guest on podcasts, you'd be wealthier than you already are.
I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah, yeah. So you really enjoy it. It seems like, anyway.
Oh, I do. It's a lot of fun. You know, it's talented people. It's friends. You know, it's a great tool for getting the gospel of me out there. You know, like I will do shows now and have people say to me, you know, I first heard you on the Comedy Death Ray podcast, you know, or I've heard you on Never Not Funny, you know, and that to me is like, that's great because it's a good way to get into me and what I do, and it's a great way to make new fans. So it's I really like that. I really like that platform. You know, I like that means of expression. I think it's great. Medium. That's the word I was looking for. I like that medium.
What do you think the future like? Are we just going to get more and more, or is it finally people are going to go, all right, there's enough, stop? I mean, it could take over radio. It's way more interesting than radio.
It is way more interesting than radio, as long as it remains free and people can do what they want. You know, they're not going to be worried about ratings and stuff like that. They're not beholden to anybody for ratings. They're only beholden to themselves. You know, and the success of it is entirely up to them and how well they can reach people. It's not like they're not being told you have to do more this or you have to do more that. That is the beauty of podcasts to me, and that it's so accessible to both the creator and the consumer is a great thing. That is the democracy of the internet in action. But yeah, I think we might already be at a saturation point, which is fine. I mean, it's like, but it's also you don't have to listen to all of them in order to find out the ones you like. There's ways you can search for things. There's recommendations. You don't like it, you know, you give it a listen. You shut it off. You don't subscribe to it. You know, you don't listen to it again. And I know for me, as a person who listens to a lot of podcasts, and I would bet a lot of people are the same way, is that you go in and out of certain ones where you might think, you know, I'm off this one for a while. I will just notice that it happens kind of naturally, like when they start to stack up, and it's like, you know what, I'm not really listening to this one anymore. It hasn't held my interest anymore. Then I've moved on to something else that has captured my attention more. So, I mean, it's a tough field in that there's a lot of competition, and you know, people can let you fall by the wayside, as I've let certain podcasts fall by the wayside that I listen to. So, you know, it's up to me to do something that I feel is as interesting as it can be, and hopefully get more and more people.
Is that why you put out yours monthly so they won't stack up? People will. No,
that is not why. I put mine out monthly because there's a lot of production that's involved, and it's I just at this point in my life, for it to be free, I can't put something like that out every single week. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of production involved in it that I do with Eben Schletter, and we put a lot of work into it. And to make it sound good, to add stuff on there that you're not going to hear. I mean, you know, the kind of default podcast model is the three guys sitting around talking, you know. Yeah. And as delightful as that is, it's very easy to do, you know. There's not a lot of, I mean, most of these podcasts like that don't even have any editing to speak of. You know, it's sort of like they press record and then they press stop, and that's it. So for what we're doing, there's multiple segments to it. There's a lot of production in the sketches that are there's original material written for the podcast that requires production. There's other sound clips and stuff that have to be the sound has to be equalized, so that everything is kind of at the same volume, so you're not having to constantly turn it up or down. There's music that gets involved. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. So, at this point, I'm sorry, I cannot do it any faster than a monthly basis. But what I'm going to start doing, starting next week, is releasing shorter stuff, little extras throughout the month. That is manageable. But those hour-long ones I can't do more than once a month.
And with all that you do, my favorite is you talking over the piano, that beautiful piano, and you're just tickling yourself.
Yes, I'm sure it sounds wildly self-indulgent and narcissistic, but
it's hilarious.
The fact of the matter is, I do think I'm a funny person, and the way comedy starts with comedians is first it makes the comedian laugh, internally, and then the comedian shares it with an audience. That's how comedy works. Like, the comedian has to think of themselves as funny, and the reason I laugh at myself is that I did not know I was going to say that stuff. It's entirely stream of consciousness, and so I am hearing it at the same moment the audience is hearing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like the thing that would sort of make me chuckle inside is now making me chuckle outside because I'm saying it out loud. Like, when I think of comedy that's going to go in my act, I don't sit here talking to myself, So it's a unique situation where I'm doing that stuff. I'm saying it out loud as I'm thinking of it, and sometimes it makes me laugh. And I realize this sounds very defensive, but it is something that people do take me to task for. But I'm sorry, I can't help it. They
take you to task for your laughter?
Some people criticize me for laughing at myself.
Oh, no, I get it. It's because I totally understand that. You're saying
for everybody that does that, there's 10 people that understand what is going on.
Right.
That is truly in the moment, and that it's all spontaneous, and people appreciate that spontaneity.
I think Jimmy Dore said it when you were on his show that a comedian is not somebody who says funny things, somebody who says things funny, and that or is that backwards? I don't know. But you're
I forget. It's like the difference between a comic and a comedian. And a comic is somebody. I think a comedian is somebody who says funny things, and a comic is somebody that says things funny. It's kind of stupid, actually.
But I mean,
when you think of it, so I don't know what that makes me. I try to be both.
You are both. That's what I was going to say. A natural, I would seem, and I'm amazed at the number of comics who aren't naturally funny, like just in conversation. You hear them on podcasts. I've interviewed them. I've hung out with them. And you just go, how did they ever get on stage? You know what I mean?
There's plenty of people that it all happens on the stage,
Yeah.
And that's where they come alive, and they're not interested in being funny. And there's also some people trying to be cool, and aren't going to be maybe they want to be taken more seriously off stage. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can't speak for those drags.
Is your wife jealous of Jen Kirkman?
No, we are all friends. That's a good question. It's a fair enough question, but no, she is not. Listen, it's not like my wife doesn't get to hear me talk to her all damn day, so she's probably more relieved that somebody else takes that burden for 15 minutes.
Or maybe I should ask: is Jen's husband jealous of you? Yeah.
Oh, not that I know of. I hope not. If he is, he has not betrayed that to me.
Jen,
he feels the same way.
Jen is going to be a guest every week or every month. I mean.
Yeah, that's going to be an ongoing conversation with Jen.
Do you hate the term alternative? Like, there's such a wide variety of styles in the alternative scene, so-called alternative scene, and the mainstream.
I don't hate it. I think it's useful in directing you to something that you might enjoy over something else. I think it's just the lack of. It's that mainstream, I guess, is the alternative to alternative, and what does that mean, really? What does that encompass? That encompasses so much stuff that it's almost like Alternative comedy is really not so alternative anymore. It's worked its way into the mainstream, but it is for me still a little bit of a signifier of something I might enjoy more than something else.
I see.
Like if somebody says it's an alternative room, I think, okay, well, I have an expectation of what might go on there.
Yeah.
If somebody said it's a comedy club, I'm probably not going to want to go see a show there because I have an because I feel like after years in the clubs, I definitely have an expectation of what that is going to be, and I'm not interested.
And the beauty of it is that you could be wrong in both cases. You could go to a club and see somebody you really like, and go to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because there is such a variety of styles.
Well, look, the majority, the fact of the matter is, and the math on it, is that 99% of anything is garbage, in artistic expression. There's not like, I'm not one of those guys that just loves all comedians because we all do comedy. It's like, there's a lot of bad comedy out there,
Yeah.
and I'm a real comedy snob for sure. Like there's a handful of people that really make me laugh and that I would really run into the room to see, no matter what. That's a very small number of people. And I just, otherwise it's like, yeah, it's like I get it, and there's people that are amusing to me, but there's not a lot of people that I absolutely love listening to. But it's an occupational hazard more than anything because for me the stuff that makes me laugh is stuff that surprises me. And being a comedian, an occupational hazard is, how this stuff gets made. So I'm able to see the construct behind the joke, and it ruins it for you, ruins it for me to a certain extent. There's only so much admiring of the craftsmanship that I will enjoy.
Right, and so it comes down more to the persona or the personality intermixed with the material.
Kind of, yeah. It's like to me, it's it really is the thought. It's what is this person thinking? What are they trying to express? If it's beyond, I guess to me, when it gets beyond just trying to provoke a laugh, but it's also there's something at work there that is slightly more interesting. There's a mind at work there that has more going on than just provoking laughter.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a movement for more personal comedy, and I know you're doing it. But
yeah, for sure, and that definitely is stuff that I enjoy. Because I like people and I like conversation, and so when there's a comedian that does that sort of material, I find that way more interesting than just jokes. Like jokes ultimately leave me cold because they are constructs. It's about precision and it's about craftsmanship as opposed to emotion. And I'm just much more interested with people that are about the emotion. Like the stuff that Louis C.K. is doing now, I think is amazing and it's hard to listen to sometimes because it's pretty unflinching, but it's way more fascinating to me than somebody who just does some one-liners, like again, it's like the craftsmanship is not that interesting to me.
Your following, is growing because of the podcast, as you mentioned. Brian Regan has a huge following without any TV presence. We didn't get a lot of your TV stuff up here.
Right.
But do you attract fans because of your TV work as well, or is it more like this word of mouth through the internet and everything?
It's kind of everything, and that's the age in which we live now. Is that with any entertainment outlet, there's so much competition that you gotta kind of take a buckshot approach in order to become a known quantity, So that's why I do a lot of podcasts. That's why I'm doing my own podcast. That's why, I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and that's all to try to reach people wherever I can, because that's the way in the absence of a regular, television outlet, where you're going to get seen by the majority of people. That's what I got to do. Mm-hmm. And luckily it's not unenjoyable to do. It's a lot of fun, and I have a good time. It's like doing that podcast. my podcast is essentially, a commercial for me, but it's not like medicine. Or, it's comedy, and I take it as a means of I see it as a means of creative expression, and it's a way in which I can get myself out there and have fun at the same time, and everybody can have fun at the same time.
Well, it's a Tompkins infomercial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which brings us to the Tompkins 300. This I know about. I know it started in Toronto. How many have there been so far?
Oh God, I've been doing it for about a year, so I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's a few dozen, and it's been really successful. And it's been the shows have been my favorite shows that I've ever done. It's the having the crowd all there for the same purpose, and not having to deal with selling food and stuff like that has just been tremendous. It's been a learning process. They haven't all been completely smooth. There's been some venues that it's like, okay, this show is okay, but this is not the type of venue that I want to do anymore. It's been a refining of the process as it's gone on. But that has been enjoyable, and meeting people afterwards. I sell CDs after the show, and I get to chat with the audience afterwards, and it's been great. It's nice to have to find out that the people that are my fans are nice, smart, thoughtful people.
Mm-hmm. Is it a lot of work just organizing it? Because is it a do-it-yourself endeavor?
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work, and my manager's office, they're the ones that make the phone calls to try and find the venues, and they're cold calling places, to try to find a place that fits the parameters of what I'm looking for, around 300 seats, and no rock clubs and no comedy clubs. It's a tricky thing, but we've managed to do it, and we've managed to do it with more success some places than others. There's some markets that we found they might get the 300 people required for me to book a show, but then the people don't buy tickets, So it's like they like the idea in theory, but that's not really enough. So yeah, it's been it is a lot of work. It's more work than the comedy club model, which is the comedy club takes care of all the promotion, and they provide the audience, and they'll maybe sometimes pay for the room or whatever, and you just have to kind of show up and do the show, and you get paid, But then what goes along with that is the stuff that I don't enjoy, which is disinterested people that I have to win over, having to get up at the crack of dawn to go do radio advertising that's not going to sell any tickets for me, and having to do multiple nights in one place, and having my fan base spread out over the course of 3 or 4 nights, as opposed to everybody's there at one place at one time. And also that a lot of my fans don't like comedy clubs, and they don't want to go to them. So yeah, it's more work on the logistical end. It's a lot less work on the performance end, and it's so much more enjoyable.
And are you doing about an hour?
Yeah, at least.
At least.
I aim for an hour, and I always go over.
Oh, good. And do you have an opener, or is it just Paul F. Tompkins?
No, unless there's been a few places that have insisted on openers, but it's just I always tell them. When they ask about openers, I say, look, I'm doing a long set. It's not you will not feel like there was not enough show.
Right. I read that you said you take your wife to the cool cities. Is she coming here?
No. It's that my wife comes to the cool cities. I would take her on any of them, but she only comes to the cool ones. I don't blame her. But I don't know if she's coming with me to Vancouver. She also, strangely enough, and against my wishes, has her own life. And does what she likes, so I can't always make her do my bidding.
Last question. It took you so long to do one CD, and now you have 2. When's 3?
Well, I got a DVD coming out in time for the December shopping holidays. That will be my last special that I did for Comedy Central. It's an hour long, called "You Should Have Told Me," and that will be out very soon. Well, thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you. And I'll see you at the show. Yes, indeed. Okay, bye-bye. All right, take care. There we go. Thanks, Paul.
Hope you enjoyed that. Paul F. Tompkins, he's the funniest guy you'll ever hear on a podcast, except for this one, when he was all business. Maybe one day, if he comes in studio, he'll be having us all in stitches. But it was interesting, I thought. So I appreciate him taking the time to speak with me a couple weeks ago, that was now, but All right, what's up next? Oh, this is a treat for you if you didn't get out to the after party, the comedy after party. There was a Greg Proops from Whose Line Is It Anyway? And he's the voice of Bob the Builder, which I know because I have a 2-year-old. He did a chat show, a talk show right there for the people at the after party. There was a band, there were microphones, so it wasn't just him imposing himself on some people in the corner. This was a planned event, but not open for the public, though. So it was. I hit my recorder. It's bootleg quality. I believe you'll be able to catch the gist of most of it. It's about 10 minutes long. I recorded when the highlight of the festival for me the last 2 years has been Paul F. Tompkins. Hilarious individual. And I recorded when he came on as the guest, and he took off his shoes, laid down on the couch, and proceeded to tell the story of him trying to find the media club on Cambie Street and the encounter here in Vancouver. All right, let's see if this works. And again, I apologize for the sound quality, but, it's bootleg. Here we go, Paulette Town. By the way, you're listening to What's So Funny. I'm Guy McPherson, and the station is CFRO 102.7 on your FM dial here in Vancouver, Canada.
I'm at 700 Cambie, and I'm not sure if I should turn left or right. And then I see this Ponytail dude come up to me, and Ponytail says, "Hey, do you need a hand? You need some help? You seem lost." And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking for the media club. It's at the 695, I'm not sure which way to go." He goes, "Oh, follow me." So I follow the guy, and I'm thinking, of course, well, he's going to murder me. That's what happens. Someone says, "Follow me, I know this place, and you don't," and then the murder commences. So I think, well, I've had a good life. I've met some famous people. I've eaten a lot of desserts. So this is as good a time as any to die. Sure, I've made my peace with my fake God and whatnot. So we're walking up the street, and the guy starts interviewing me, and he's saying, "Where are you from?" And I say, "I'm coming from Los Angeles." He says, "Oh, I have 4 aunties that live in California. One's in Lodi, one's in Stockton, blah, 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 blah." He goes on and on. It seems like a nice enough chap. And I think, well, this murder won't be so bad when he finally murders me. At least we had a nice chat, right? So we come up within sight of the media club. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you something about myself. I'm a bit of a nosy Parker, and I see people that need help around town, and I try to help them out, and all I ask in return is just a small gratuity, whatever they can spare." And I think, well, I guess it's better than being murdered, but still, I feel like this guy kind of took me for a ride a little bit, because I had a 50-50 shot of finding out which way the media club was, seeing as I was on the corner. So I reach into my pocket, and there's a loose dollar, and I give him $1. And he looks at me.
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough, Craig. Have I told you the story?
No, I'm just guessing that he thought you lowballed him.
Here's what happens. The guy looks at me for a second. For a moment, I think, oh, I've given him too much money. Because the look on his face is like, I can't believe this is happening. And he goes, look, I could have made, $20 just sitting there on the street. And then I think, well, that's what you should have done.
Yeah.
Because clearly your business model was not sound. You would have been better off doing that, not walking around waiting for people to look lost. You should have just sat your ass in one place and asked for money. So, and he says,
Urban tour guide.
Yeah, exactly. And he says, no offense. And I said, oh, none taken. Even though it was a 50-50 shot, I was either going to go, at 700, looking for 695. I would have gone to 702 and said, oh, not this way. I better turn around and go the other way. So I say, well, here you go. And he goes, oh, all right. Well, I usually it would have been more money. And it's not like he found me crawling through the streets with an empty canteen. Like, can someone please deliver me from this hell? I thought I saw a pond, but it turned out to be a cactus. I embraced it, and the needles are still in my face. Could someone tell me the way to the media club? I'll give you all my loonies and toonies.
I've seen nothing on this corner but pools of alkali and blanched skulls. Can anyone point me toward Miss Haven?
Will I be one of those cowheads?
I love that he's like looking for people in Vancouver because it's so confusing, that whole block of streets and backwards twisty Winchester Mystery House roads here.
Oh, here's an easy mark. He doesn't know where that media club is. And here we are. I feel like I can see the crowd better than they can see me because the light is so strange. I can see these folks over here, these two, and then I see this lady, very lit, and then everything else is blackness. Just blackness.
You notice how when you have a party at your house, everybody ends up in the kitchen?
Right.
You notice how this isn't the kitchen?
No.
Yeah. That just struck me. It was more like we're in the living room and we're actually the drunk uncles at the party. And it's actually disintegrated to that point where people have that huge headache over their left eye because they haven't eaten enough and they've been drinking cheap wine for hours and hours.
If only I had a magical trick to amuse everyone.
Oh, you need no magical trick. Why, your joie de vivre and your wit are your magic.
Greg, ask me anything. I'll answer any question you ask me, truthfully.
Have you had any run-ins with people on the street here in Vancouver since you've been here? I was kidding about that, of course, but I guess it's a little late to use the scalpel. Looks like it's time to take out the broadsword.
Why is there
Got any pussy while you've been here in Vancouver?
Hold on a second.
Right.
I have a question. Why are we doing this show? This seems insane and wrong. This is a party, right? We're like clowns or magicians.
Yeah, I felt more like deranged relatives, the ones who took too many drugs and were
Right.
looking in the mirror telling themselves they were hating themselves at like 1 in the morning.
But here's the difference: is no one gathers around them.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People stay away from them.
No, we created a spectacle here. Yeah.
We have created a spectacle.
Fortunately, my embarrassment level is fucking undeniably low.
Which is a blessing.
Yeah.
It is
In this
a blessing.
business, it has to be, because I'm sitting on a couch with a lamp near me in Vancouver in an attic. And it's actually part of a festival.
Oh! That's weird. That we're experiencing. That wasn't festive. That was festive in the way a lynch mob is festive. We're gonna lynch someone! Isn't this the greatest? Do you believe we get to do this for free? Hang people by the neck until dead because they look different.
I know, the lynch mob is irresistible.
Do they still
Don't put it down.
Why do they put it down? Because they don't understand it.
The excitement, the appeal of it.
You guys will get it. When you lynch someone for the first time, you'll get it. Do they still tar and feather people? Why did that ever go out of fashion?
Where does one get tar? That's the thing. You'd have to drive by like someone getting roofed or whatever. Can I have a bucket, please? Because this guy's a malcontent and he has to be ridden out of town on a rail.
On a rail!
Rail.
Like, so much bother.
Yeah.
First, let's get some tar. Pour it on the guy.
Yeah.
Let's get a bunch of feathers. How many feathers do we need? Enough to cover a person. Then we have to ride him out of town on a rail. What does that entail? Well, we strap him to the rail, then we carry it. Oh, we carry it? Boy, oh boy. This is starting to seem like work. I mean, I hate the guy as much as everybody in town does. But can't we just make him feel uncomfortable?
Couldn't we just deride his haircut? Put him in stocks and throw plums at him or something? I know.
What a primitive form of punishment that was.
You know what though? Like, I think the viral world is today's stocks. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is.
Because everybody's punished on worldwide in 2 seconds now. Whatever transgression they've made, whether you're David Hasselhoff and you just fucking get drunk and your own daughter fucking 1984s you and turns you into viral thought
To be fair, that was his idea.
Was it?
He said,
he told her to?
Yes, he said, look.
What a shitty idea that is.
If I get hammered, I want you to videotape.
Is that a bad idea or what, Paul? I love getting drunk and drinking and getting high. Fuck you. Don't ever fucking videotape me and use it against me. I'll say that I was enchanted. I'll say fucking leprechaun found me in Vancouver.
I would kind of want someone to do that. I wouldn't want to see the video.
Dude was eating a cheeseburger. Negro was hungry. When you drink a lot of fucking drinks from a minibar, you get hungry and you want a cheeseburger. I was all on his side of that. I didn't know why he didn't have his shirt on. Was he like, why does Matthew McConaughey never have his shirt on? What is that? I never like hang around with my shirt off and go like, I'm drunk.
That dude, here's the thing, is that when rich people can attain a level of high that no one else can attain. It's like, you know what? The supply of weed will never stop. So why should I ever have a shirt on? I will put on my Beetlejuice board shorts and I will get some palm fronds and jump around because I fucking feel like it. And my movies stink. They don't do well. I will keep making them because I look like this.
Yeah.
As high as I get, I maintain this physique and this face. Yeah.
Well, he lives on the beach. Apparently, he just prances up and down the beach and keeps the, his bitching, pecs.
He lives in a fucking trailer.
Yeah.
And like an old-timey trailer, too. Not a modern trailer.
Not a modern trailer. I don't know if I ended that myself or my recorder stopped. But there you go. You got a sense of the Greg Proops chat show with guest Paul F. Tompkins. We're almost out of time here on What's So Funny, CFRO 102.7 FM. Well, wasn't that fun? I hope you enjoyed it. Half of it was him talking on the phone several weeks ago to me personally. And that's fair. That's a solid show, I gotta say. So I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, we'll be back here again next Sunday night with a very special guest. And in 2 weeks' time, we have Paul Bay, a little pre-Christmas visit on the 17th. So, tune in. Thanks. Good night.